Well, I am a Chicagoan, and that is my music. So we've come to the social media part of the program, have we not? And we can see that maybe a few people were left jogging on the lakefront, felt that they knew it all about social media today, or were LinkedIn experts. But thank you for having me. Thank you, Rick Harris. Thank you, Amy McGady. I'm delighted and honored to be here. And this has been quite an eye-opening experience to be exposed to your world, the world of professional proposal writers. And I learned a lot just being in the breakouts yesterday. And I learned your vocabulary. And a lot of what you do is really no different than what I do. We just do it in different media for different clients at times. But we're all faced with business development and capture and procurement. These are the terms, your vocabulary that I've incorporated into mine. And it's going to be a seamless transition. And Leonardo said it well in the Renaissance era, did he not? Everything is connected, and we're seeing more connectivity today than ever before. We're in front of decision makers. We're shoulder to shoulder with the people who can retain us for our products, our services, and come into our enterprises. It's unprecedented. And LinkedIn, which is the Facebook for business, as I like to call it, has an art and a science to it. And for me, it plays right into my left brain, right brain folly, because like a lot of folks, I see the art and I see the science in a lot of things, but more for me, I grew up questioning the science around me. So what I want to do today is give you the freedom to think for yourself, something that's a little unusual. It's not a how-to. It's not a my way or the highway type of thing, because the only way that you're going to achieve on LinkedIn, and it's set up for everybody to achieve, is for you to develop your own take. Put your own DNA, wrap your own mind around it. It's not what I say. It's not what the gal in the cubicle next to you says. It's what you think is right. It's how you're accountable in your own interactions online. How you're able to extract information from a computer screen and apply it into the real world. And that's what LinkedIn really is doing for everybody today. So we put our left brains and our right brains in the same room, and we let them fight it out. And for me, I get my left brain, right brain split from Ruth on the left and Leon on the right. I like to call them Mom and Dad. And they were both artists, and they were both scientists. So I grew up appreciating the art around me, nature and all that. And then I grew up very inquisitive, always questioning the science behind it. And when I finally got to LinkedIn, that's when I truly saw the science, always experimenting. And as you can see here in this spontaneous, unposed picture, that's Dad in the background explaining, I don't know, something in science. And that's my mom, the eye candy of her day, in the foreground. And my dad used to write these unbelievably persuasive letters. Anybody remember this? We're dating ourselves, are we not? And when my dad would go to lunch, after typing up all morning, and my dad was an unbelievable two-finger typist, had the complete range of the keyboard with the two index fingers. I don't know how he did it. Never took typing in high school, but the guy just cranked it out. And the sound of that ball whirring across the page, it's one of the most indelible auditory synapses I have. I can still hear it. Sometimes I wake up shrieking in the middle of the night because I know that if I made a mistake, I was screwed, man. I didn't know how to put that thing in. I never got it right. I wouldn't like block out the whole letter. There'd be some black of the letter. I could never make the correction. But what I was able to do was I was able to look at these letters when he left to go to have coffee or go to lunch, and I would see what he wrote. And my dad was a proposal writer. He was a medical research dynamo. In fact, you get to be known in medical research by the type of organ you focus on, and my dad was a liver man. And much of what he contributed to the popular notion of cancer research still exists today. And my dad owns about 50 pages posthumously on Google for the work he did. He was a prolific author, and that's the shadow that I grew up in, always questioning. So when I got to LinkedIn, it was much like probably what you experienced. I looked at this thing as kind of labyrinthine, but I figured it out. It's just the way I'm hardwired. I never looked negatively on it. I never thought it was going to be too difficult for me. I liked it right away. And I started to do things on it right away. And I tell people these days that I became a LinkedIn consultant the day I created my account because I never shut up about it. I kept talking. I kept asking questions. I kept getting questions. And within 30 days, and it's a long story, I had branded as a LinkedIn consultant. And I'm going to take you back to 2006, where there were no LinkedIn consultants per se. Nobody was outsourcing the writing of a LinkedIn profile. It was at the headwaters of the recession. And at the time I saw LinkedIn, I was writing website copy. So I was helping people easily get to the top of Google. A little bit harder today, a little bit more expensive today. But back in 2006, when so many people were becoming entrepreneurial and taking out websites, there was a need for these type of sites with this type of copy. Within 30 days, I had transitioned to a practice solely focused on LinkedIn. I haven't been visionary with too many things in my life. I cannot predict the NFL. But I was kind of sort of right on. I saw something in this. And my mission, my purpose, Colleen, we'll talk about mission and purpose tomorrow, I know that. It happened. I saw it. I didn't know it at the time. Had a tough time explaining it to my wife in the early going when LinkedIn was at the 30 million user mark, early adoption. Nobody really heard of it. Many of my colleagues were not on it. And she says to me, so what do I tell people that you do? Oh, just tell them I'm in marketing communications or something like that. So for the last 7.5 years, I have been in the front lines explaining LinkedIn to people, dodging the bullets, taking a few from my clients along the way, and doing a deep dive on LinkedIn, complete immersion, full study. And I've heard all the excuses why people won't do it. So if you've got one, I've heard it. But I've isolated it down to 3 buts. JD, can I call you JD? I say sure. I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not using it. Perhaps this is some of you. Well, there's always something behind the meaning, and I like to look for the meaning behind the meaning. And some people are just not ready to do it. It's ready, fire, aim, folks, because every day without a stellar LinkedIn profile is a day of lost opportunity. The second part, JD, I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not really using it effectively. Keyword in there, of course, folks, is effectively. And I know the translation. I think people start out with good intentions. They're doing a few things right. They're doing what LinkedIn is prompting them to do, but then they kind of sort of hit a wall, and they kind of give up. There's a lot of giving up on LinkedIn, but nothing to the extent of but number 3, JD. Can I call you JD? I said, you might as well at this point. JD, I'm on LinkedIn, but anybody here offer up that excuse every now and then? Well, I know what it means. You can't BS a BSer. It's easy to procrastinate. In fact, I had about 4 or 5 slides solely on procrastination, but I just never got around to putting them in my deck. For the next talk, I will talk more about procrastination. It's our reptilian brain, folks. We know this. The triune brain, the brain that shields us from harm, the brain that says, you don't want to do this. I know that. People don't want to do it. I have sat next to hundreds of people, side by side at the computer, watching their eyes track across the screen, watching them perceive, trying to get meaning from what they're experiencing and what they're communicating to me. And in many cases, they're just not willing to venture out of the comfort zone. It's a slide some of you may have seen before. This is the reptilian brain at its strongest hold. And I assure you, if you want something that's difficult, I've got difficult for you. So what I realized along my journey as it was starting back in 2006, that from the get-go, I was competing. I was competing on the site. What was I competing for? I didn't really know back then. Oh, I know it now. I really know it now. But back then it was difficult to see because this was so new. This was a new thing. The founding fathers of LinkedIn, when they sallied forth and invested their first seed money on this site, it it did look like some undergrad's IT project. But now it's a vibrant, hustle-bustle, aesthetically refined website. It is a social networking site, a social media site. Sometimes the two terms get intermingled. But this is where business people live. And if you're going to be where business people live, you better look to buy. We're competing for a lot of things. And I started to analyze competitive advantage and how I could put myself in position to be in the conversations I wanted. Because at the time, remember, I was looking for website business or marketing communications business. If you had an annual report or a brochure or a 4-color marketing piece, I wanted to write it. I wanted to help you produce it. And I got clients using LinkedIn, just based off intuition. But I knew that I was competing for the most valuable commodity of all, and that was attention. Because now it's really noisy. It's crowded, isn't it? It's tough to get noticed. It's a daily fight to get noticed. And even with people on the run, with all these devices at our disposal, it's even a tougher fight to get noticed. So to truly compete on a site like LinkedIn, it's not just about splashing up some great content about yourself. It truly is about getting into the brains of the people with whom you'd like to engage. Impression has a double meaning. It means something completely different to marketing analytics people, but it should mean something to all of us because we're truly trying to make an impression. And in some cases, it's the first impression. And first impression science has come a long way since the advent of advertising. Your first impression of me, for instance, as I took the stage. The first impression of the people you meet here. The idea that perhaps there's possibilities to collaborate, that there's synergies worth exploring. It's all based on the impressions that we generate, both in the real world and online. And because we buy on emotion, we have to trigger something in the brain. And we go for a very literal bilateral site called, anybody? Any PhDs in neuroscience in the house today? It's the amygdala. It's the seat of emotional exchange in the human brain. This is where the synapses fire. This is when people like you. This is when they buy. Because it's a neural concept. Buying is a neural concept. It's all internalized. And so much of what we do on LinkedIn is internalized. There are people making split-second decisions about you based on what you present on a website. Who would have thought that? But that's how you build this nebulous concept called brand. And in case of our discussion this morning, social brand. This is all people have to go on in some instances, before they make a decision as to whether or not to engage you. Because if you truly are remarkable, truly indelible, lay down memories in people, and they're able to recall you and retrieve your information in their mind, you've moved up their psychic hierarchy, then you exist as a brand and not as a one of many. Because everybody's a one of many. I'm a one of many. There's a lot of people now claiming to be LinkedIn experts or social media strategists. And by the way, every time you use social media, you have to use finger quotes. It's the law. So what I determined through this first 7.5 years of this journey is whatever advantage you can create for yourself on a site like LinkedIn comes from your cognitive process. You have to outlook, you have to outthink, and outbehave your competitors. Pure and simple, that's how it's done on LinkedIn. Now this, of course, in alignment with all of the other things you're doing to outlook, outthink, and outbehave your competitors. In the real world, the foot-on-floor world. It really comes down to what can I do on a site like LinkedIn where people are generating leads without question. It has revolutionized prospecting as we know it in the sales world. But how can you truly compete? What are the qualities that LinkedIn achievers use to compete? Let's take you through some skill sets, shall we? All right. Well, optimism. Do I look like an optimistic guy? Come on. Positive psychology cannot be underestimated. I get my optimistic outlook for rooting for a certain Major League Baseball team that has not won a World Series in 106 years. You think I have a positive outlook? I'm getting impatient, but I have a positive outlook. I was always open-minded. The day I discovered this thing, I never let a negative thought enter my head, but I was receptive. I was receptive to what I was looking at. I didn't look at it as a waste of time. I attached value to it right away. I was open to new ideas. If you are open, if you are receptive, if you are responsive, if you understand the interplay between stimulus and response, you're going to get this thing. You just kind of get wisdom with each session. And when you string together a few good sessions, you start to pick it up. And you start opening doors. And I don't mean just kind of peeking through doors. I mean busting through doors like Clint Eastwood in High Plains Drifter, because the opportunities present and you can see them. And this nebulous concept called critical thinking that many people state that they have on their resume, they always espouse their critical thinking. Well, true critical thinking in front of the computer means not giving up after 5 minutes and saying that you were on LinkedIn for that day. It truly means thinking your way through each session and taking a look at the positive ramifications of what you're doing. Look at everything as strategic, because it truly is. From that, you develop a certain mental toughness. I'm a big fan of mental toughness because it keeps me wedged in my seat, riveted to the screen. When I want to quit, I'll review 1 or 2 more profiles. I'll go to 1 or 2 more articles that my network is sending me to. I'll look here, I'll look there. I don't zone out. People who zone out or procrastinate or who are looking for the perfect workspace or are waiting until they get that profile just so fine and ready, they don't get mentally tough and they don't create situational awareness. Situational awareness, great concept. It's the ability to be present in the moment and actually not soft focus on what you're seeing. Like the picture someone holds up 10 feet in front of you and you're waiting for the bunny to emerge when you let your eyes go a little soft. It's truly about creating social proximity. There's a reason we're building our LinkedIn networks. There's a reason we're moving people closer to us, shrinking our universe, getting one level of separation closer to be able to make a subtle shift in conversation from, thank you for accepting my invitation, to, well, how can we collaborate? How can we do business? Who's your ideal client? How can I help? When I first got onto LinkedIn, I was like Lewis and Clark. I was like Magellan. I was exploring here, there, and everywhere. I didn't have an agenda. I just went places. I was just like the feather in the opening sequence of Forrest Gump. Serendipitous behavior on LinkedIn. It led me into so many opportunities. By the way, I'm a big fan of cinema. Do we have any film fans in the crowd today? Oh, you're going to love my movie references, folks. Because they're important, and they're great teaching tools. As is a sticky remote. There we go. Congruence of content. Walking the talk. What you have on LinkedIn has to mirror what you say in the real world. If it doesn't, there's a disconnect. Cognitive dissonance. How many times have you met people, they tell you one thing, what they do, you're zoning out, you're not listening, you're trying to figure out some keywords, but you're thinking of all the stuff you have to do. But then you go back to LinkedIn, and you see that what they said to you in the real world doesn't really measure up to what you're reading about them on their profile. This happens all the time. Many people do not parallel their LinkedIn profiles to what they do in the real world, and it causes confusion. Managing time. Time is of the essence for all of us. We know that. There's no shortcut when it comes to LinkedIn. There's no panacea. There's no magic bullet. You have to put in the time to get the dime, and we're all very inundated. We have so much stuff coming at us. Email, voicemail, proposals to write, perhaps. There's a lot coming at you. To separate out an hour a day, 90 minutes a day, or to just be a weekend warrior on LinkedIn is not going to cut it. It has to be something that becomes part of your DNA. And most LinkedIn achievers never minimize the browser. When it comes to Drive, I know a little something about Drive because I lived through 8 years of Drive. When you were in this town and you saw Michael Jordan play for the Chicago Bulls, it was a remarkable study in competition, in Drive. He would beat you in any way possible. Chicago got a winning attitude after taking so many knocks as a losing city. We actually were buoyed in civic pride. We actually just carried ourselves with more bravado, more swagger because of Jordan. He galvanized the city, and he found his influence at the right time, and we found ours. Influence is what this program is all about. It's what the conference is all about. Each breakout session I was in yesterday talked about exerting influence of some kind. And on LinkedIn, you discover your influence at the time when you need it the most, because it's getting tougher and tougher to get through the gatekeepers. How do you get a desired effect? Anywhere. How do you get people to accept your LinkedIn invitation? How do you get people to take action with you? If you can find it, it's a beautiful thing, and it doesn't mean hitting them over the heads. But it does mean subtly exchanging with them, finding out what moves them. Shawshank is a great film to study the impact of influence and networking. Andy Dufresne is a classic study of someone who has manipulated his environment to achieve a desired outcome. Sound familiar? That's what's happening on LinkedIn. How you navigate the social terrain will influence the way you drive your offline results. Let's define LinkedIn success, because it's a bit of a vague term for some people. I think most people would agree that it has something to do with a financial component, that I'm using this to generate leads. Ideally, there should be some income, some revenue stream as a result of it. Some people look at network strength or network size, and I would offer to the quantity versus quality people that the argument somewhat fails, because would you rather have 500 plus people that you don't know or don't remember connecting with, or would you have the one great super connector who's just a referral stream for you? Success is also measured in the types of leads we generate and the number of leads we generate. Well, would you rather have a lot of leads sitting unleveraged in your funnel, or would you rather have the transaction, the paying customer? Let's define what we call revenue generating activity, RGA. How on earth did I come up with that? It's any action or reaction that leads to a, can anybody complete the rhyme? An RGA, a revenue generating activity, is any action or reaction that leads to a transaction. I define 3 revenue generating activities, and it's not one before the other. It's a triangulation of these activities. Marketing, learning, and connecting. If you're not doing one of these 3 activities, LinkedIn is a time suck. We're always marketing. Everything we do on the site is marketing. Our thumbnail photo, which attaches to anything we do on LinkedIn, creates our presence on the site beyond a profile visit. Learning, what you observe on the site, how you apply knowledge, the acquisition of wisdom and the application of wisdom in the real world. You're learning. And of course, connecting is the sine qua non of LinkedIn. And I always tell my clients to focus on the end game. And I track LinkedIn success through the number of meaningful conversations that I can generate. A meaningful conversation. And today you're hearing a lot of social media folks talk about the conversation. The conversation actually is the conversation at this point. It's about having conversations, but nobody really knows how to generate them or how they come about or how they advance them. But you'll know it when you're in it, because there are certain indicators. Let's talk about the big 5. Some of this is easy stuff, but some of it is stuff that you haven't done. What is your outcome on the site? What are you trying to achieve? Obviously, I know some of you want these. How many people want these? Of course. Client acquisition is an outcome. When you think of the outcome, then you can build everything around the outcome on LinkedIn. Another outcome is perhaps raising capital, penetrating new markets, bringing new people into the enterprise, strategic partnerships, referral alliances. These days, businesses can't do it themselves to just go out and mine clients. They have to receive them from the external sources, their business partners. There's a recruiting element, a strong recruiting element on LinkedIn, bringing new people into the enterprise. Talent acquisition is an outcome, a desired outcome on LinkedIn. Thought leadership. Perhaps some of you sitting here are budding thought leaders or would-be subject matter experts. It's not just about being paid to do a task, to sell a product, provide a service. It's really about leading your industry, dominating your field, competing. Number 2, of the easy pieces, The LinkedIn profile, which has become the go-to document in business today. We're checking people out on their LinkedIn profiles before we're Googling them at this point, are we not? If you're in business and you don't exist on LinkedIn, it's a red flag at this stage of the game. And people are not doing business with ghosts. And we'd like to think that we're being taken on face value on our LinkedIn profiles. We want to put the best possible foot forward, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are driving the types of perceptions in the real world. If people are going to read 1, 2, or 3 paragraphs about us in the summary section of our LinkedIn profiles, we want to make sure that that's where the good stuff is, because remember, attention span being what it is, you're only going to get a nanosecond or 2 before they make a determination as to whether or not they want to scroll down and see more. So if you have the good stuff, they're going to scroll. So I would ask you to consider your profile as it stands right now. You're meeting people here. You're exchanging cards. You're here to do business. Good business. Quality business. Sustainable business. And people are going to go back upstairs at the end of the day, look on their laptops or their devices, and check you out on LinkedIn. What are they seeing? Have you set your LinkedIn profile up for the outcomes you want? Are you telling a story about your personal brand? Extraordinary personal brand. You are all extraordinary. I've looked at this crowd over the course of 24 hours. This is an extraordinarily good-looking crowd. And you should be well represented on LinkedIn. And you should be telling your story, maybe not in a way like this. Because I don't know if this is what you'd want other people to see. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they do. And it's amazing that I see it as often as I do. And by the way, there's nobody left in the box because everybody is. Please don't use think out-of-the-box thinker on the LinkedIn profile. When you embolden yourself and you get confident on the site, you feel better about yourself. And feeling better about oneself in business is where it's at today. And I think that is one of the benefits that a truly great, remarkable LinkedIn profile gives you, is the ability to move around and maneuver in your circles with more confidence, knowing that you're going to be checked out in a very favorable way. When you have great content on your LinkedIn profile, set up for the decisions that you want, addressing the pain points of your clients, then you know you're going to be in better conversations. And we're all hardwired for story. This is one of the most popular talked about phrases now. So much coming out about storytelling. Not everybody can weave a great story. It is an art unto itself. There are storytelling classes. Second City, the great comedy platform here in Chicago, offers corporate storytelling programs now, something that they didn't do when I went through the program back in the 1980s. We're all content marketers now. Brand storytelling has kind of woven its way into content marketing. What does content marketing truly mean? Well, content marketing means that you wage an all-out assault on all of the platforms available and accessible to you, and available and accessible to the people with whom you engage. So it's not just about putting content out there, as it is putting the right content in front of the right eyes at the right time in the platforms that matter. And you are the purveyor of the information. You're the big I, folks. It has to be on your LinkedIn profile. It can route through LinkedIn. If you don't trumpet it, no one will hear it. We have rich media capability on LinkedIn. You can put video on the LinkedIn profile. It's now a true embed right into the profile. People can fire videos right there on your page. They may not have time to read all the great stuff you wrote, but if they see a video that goes less than a minute with a launch button in front of your face, are they going to launch it? Absolutely they will. For some of you who are doing podcasts or getting your voice out there, it just becomes a platform where you can truly be in front of the clients that need you the most. And if you're truly letting them know how you solve problems, addressing their pain, showing them how to alleviate your pain, and not just stating that you're a dynamic, results-oriented, motivated problem solver. I don't know the last time anybody typed that into a search engine. Bob, we need a dynamic, results-oriented, motivated problem solver. Find me one. And we all know that content is... You sure? Wow, smart audience. This is a smart audience. But I also want you to know that I am not a gender-biased speaker. And I've just curried favor with all of the women in the group. So what does the decision about you really entail? Because it is a decision about you. And on LinkedIn, when you have all synapses firing, and you truly have the ability to generate leads through how you present on the site, you have the ability to build the type of network you want. The type of network that is robust, rich, rewarding, personally and professionally. People that can help you and people that you can help. Because reciprocity is a two-way street, by design, by definition. So we're in it, obviously, at the end of the day, to pay our bills, to generate revenue, but we're also in it to feel part of a community, to help and support the dreams of others as well. I love quotes. If I told you I love quotes, I love quotes about quotes. This is the best quote on relationships I've ever seen. I do a great Woody Allen, but I'm not going to insult you by reading my slide. Why should I do that? But if you can hear him do this incredible quote from Annie Hall, you'll truly see that most people have a bunch of dead sharks floating around in their LinkedIn network. And it comes down to how you want to manage them and how we manage our networks. This is really the kind of the holy grail now of all the LinkedIn work. Because by now, people have heard that they need to do something with the profile. They need to buff it up. They need to make themselves ready for prime time. But now they need to kind of figure out how people around them are thinking. Bring them into their network, try to focus on ways to help each other, and do great business. And that is the challenge today. Because still, at the end of the day, you know it, we all know it, it's what's in it for you. The basis of my book, and where all this competition stuff I felt it was heading, was that we build these networks very intuitively. We do what LinkedIn asked us to do. In other words, LinkedIn has stated in their user agreement that we should only connect with people that we know well. But how many people here have people that they've never met in their LinkedIn networks? Really, JD? Of course. And that leads us to our own rules of engagement. Obviously, you pull the trigger on who you bring into your network. Not everybody's going to make it. Not everybody should make it. That's why there's an ignore button. And you can use it to click on it freely. If somebody is not meritorious to what you're doing, or you feel that you don't know why they're connecting with you in the first place, it's okay. You don't have to take on everybody. Everybody vets connections in different ways. But when you get to the point where you have taken them on, then it becomes a trust-based situation. And you have to respect the sanctity of the first-degree connection on LinkedIn. It does not give you a license to market. And when you leverage, and leverage is one of the most overused words in all of social networking, true leverage involves gaining a strategic or positional advantage. In fact, the word lever comes from 1724, where it was first used, really truthfully out of mechanical engineering, to exert force on a lever to gain a positional advantage. And that's really what we're doing. And we're doing all kinds of leverage activities on LinkedIn, or leverage that we think we're doing through just selling, or connecting with someone and automatically transferring them to your email list. That's not how you leverage a connection. You truly leverage a connection with meaningful communication. And that's any act of leverage is performed on communication. The strength of our relationships, obviously the strength of your network, you measure your strength of your network in a couple of different ways. Not so much number, but just in terms of how many quality conversations you can generate. And that's what I've always looked at. I've taken people on who are friends, people who are good colleagues. I don't really converse with them on a regular basis because it becomes very difficult. Our networks are expanding. And as our networks are expanding, there's more people flooding the stream, more people competing for our attention. It's becoming very noisy on the homepage. We can't keep these connections in front of us. And I've developed a couple of techniques along the way. And one day, as we're accepting invitations and we're doing what we need to do on LinkedIn, we sit at the computer one day and we figure out, how did we build this network? Did we build it organically? Did we take every invitation that we wanted to take? LinkedIn has an algorithmic shuffle system where they're constantly putting people that we may know in front of us. Key is, never invite these folks from the people you may know ledger. Always visit the profile, invite them there. The who's viewed your profile. How many people check their profile views every day? Slight show of hands. How many people are going to check their profile views every day after today? Better question. The who's viewed your profile metric is perhaps the most important on LinkedIn. People who avoid this or ignore it or don't attach value to it, they're basically ignoring the sound of the cash register, in my opinion. As your profile is being viewed, you're viewing other people's profiles. Reciprocal profile views that don't result in a LinkedIn invitation, it's just incredible to me how that fails to go on. Anytime someone views my profile like a knee-jerk, I'm on their profile, and I'm looking at them. I'm figuring out if this is someone that I should connect with. They obviously came to my profile, perhaps through serendipitous or strategic means, but they're there, they're visiting. They've been on my site. What can I do? Well, I can reach out to them, and I often do. But I put the ball in their court. I will say, hey, thank you for visiting my profile. If you feel that connecting with me is a good idea, please send me an invitation to connect, and I will gladly accept. Now that's, of course, I can reach them through traditional means on LinkedIn. If I have to go outside LinkedIn, I'll see if I can. Sometimes I can't, or I will in-mail them. We all know about in-mails. In-mails are high gravitas messages that you can send directly that are engineered to ensure a greater response rate. We also build our connections through our group participation. Now I could do a whole keynote on the LinkedIn groups. But for purposes today, the LinkedIn groups are the sub-communities that perhaps you've explored to some extent before. There's a lot of noise that goes on in the groups, a lot of overt, shameless, selfless promotion going on. But it's getting a little better because of the vigilance of group managers and the increased police activity of many members in the group who are flagging responses. So you've built this network through whatever means. And you're looking at these names on the screen. And it's very difficult to get lost in what comes next, because the strategies out there for leveraging connections are few and far between. But I have a few. And go back to how you are operating on LinkedIn. We're all in the fishbowl metaphor. And sometimes we see people who catch our attention. And we want to swim up and take a closer look. And sometimes there's a call for more information. We do what? We click and we review their profile. And then we're making certain surface evaluations, judgments, beliefs about whether these people would be good connections for us. But we're thinking. We have an internal dialogue going. We're thinking, could this person be a client? Maybe. Could this person introduce me to clients? Maybe. After looking at the profile and seeing that he's a dynamic, results-oriented, motivated problem solver who communicates effectively across all organizational levels and is aligned with the corporate vision, I'm not sure I know what value this person might have to me. So you send out the default, formulaic, standardized, generic, boilerplate LinkedIn invitation. What a relationship builder that is. Huh? I'll tell you. Anybody ever receive this, or am I the only one? Mobile app notwithstanding, because you can't personalize an invitation on the mobile app, which should tell you right now, please do not send any LinkedIn invitations through the mobile app. Promise me? Promise! All right. Because when I get this, man, it's just... With all that we're hearing about getting relationships off to a good start, building equity, advancing relationship, gathering momentum, why don't you tell people what you really think? Just be human truth serum. Just tell them what you think. Just sit in each other's directories for the next 2 years, and when you're doing your audit going, I don't remember this person, you're out of here. It's mutual benefit. Hold on to the people that you feel mutual benefit is a possibility. 4 of the 5. We're on our way. How are we doing so far? All right. Morning keynote. I know you're probably you've ingested some baked goods. You've got the caffeine. Your cortisol levels up. Your blood sugars. We're good? All right. The online conversation. Another big piece of the social media platform is managing communities. Community management has become a huge topic today because we no longer have small networks of people. We have subpopulations of the business universe in our networks. How do you manage them? How do you sort them out? How do you organize them? You see yourself running in different tribes, and I'm sure by now many of you, if you've been on LinkedIn every day in every way and using it wisely, you're starting to see some patterns emerge. You're starting to see connections in common. A good sign when you're connecting with someone, even if they do send you the generic invite, is look and see who they're connected. How many people here today now are looking at that as one of the top criteria for vetting a potential connection is who they're connected with? You've grown up. Congratulations. It's a very sophisticated strategy. Not everybody does it. And of course, not everybody makes their connections visible. So there's something, again, intuitive. We have to sometimes go on our own intuition as to whether or not we're going to add a person to our network. But at the same time, if you can see commonalities, shared people, then you know you're in a place of trust. And good LinkedIn users, solid LinkedIn citizens, are community builders. And when you attach value, economic value and professional value to your connections, you're in a situation where you can start to prioritize and organize people who you want to have conversations with. Not everybody is going to wind up being a meaningful conversation. I think I stated that earlier. If not, I'll state it now. Not everybody is going to be a prospect, a qualified lead, a confidant, a referral alliance, a super connector, an introducer, an influencer, a decision maker, however you use, whatever taxonomy you use. But if they don't meet any of the criteria, well, we're a society based on expungement nowadays. There's a lot of expunging going on, a lot of bailout going on. Cut ties. Over the summer, I did an audit of my LinkedIn network. I was approaching 5,000 connections, and it was getting a little too much. I felt I had to take a page out of my own playbook and really see who I had in my network. Because for sport, I was connecting with a few people, Chicago area people. I connect with people all over the world. I'm very happy to connect with folks who approach me in a very respectful way. But I saw people in my network that I knew I couldn't help, that I knew were just not going to lead to anything. They had no content on their profile. I didn't even know what markets they were in. There just was something very weird about some of these profiles. One had for the headshot, it was a flag of some African nation I'd never heard of. So I figured that was a sham profile. And there are some of those too. And then I brought the connections closer to me that I wanted to isolate for conversation. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to be proactive in reaching out to my network, not in a spammy way, but just to say, hey, touching base. We've been LinkedIn connections for quite a while. And then I said the two words that are the greatest conversation starter in all of social networking. How's business? And I ended each message with that. You can try it too, and I know some of you will. And I want to know how it works for you. Because that way, the email won't wind up in some cyber depository. You're going to get a response. When you say to someone and close your message with how's business question mark, what do you think your chances are of getting a response from someone? Pretty high. You don't want to get the full details. I mean, you don't want to know every problem. You don't want to know that they're not meeting quota, or that they're having problems retaining key leadership, or that they could use another business developer, or wait a minute. Maybe you do. Maybe if you ask them how's business, they'll really start to ventilate and tell you their pain and tell you why their business is not growing, or what they could use, or what they need, or we just lost a couple key people. Do you know anyone? 2 words. How's business question mark. Best regards, your name here. See what they say. I've done it a lot. I've been into some amazing conversations as a result, because that leads to the equity law. And relationships follow the same basic laws of any equity-based concept. It's an economy, the relationship economy. We've heard that before, right? Human capital, social capital, investing in people, taking deposits. It all follows economic modeling, I think, but so few people understand that they have great social capital. To get it, you have to give it. You have to invest in your network. You have to take responsibility, be accountable in all your interactions with your network. Be a helper, be a supporter, be a mentor when called upon. There are a lot of people reaching out in our networks, are there not? I'd be very surprised if someone who is a dedicated LinkedIn user has not received a message or two from one of their LinkedIn brethren or sisters who are basically in survival mode. They're asking for help. A lot of folks fighting the good fight in transition and in a job search, much like we are for developing business. They have to work their job search like a business, and they're doing everything they should. They're reaching out to their network. They're trying to cast as wide a net as possible and try to get some results. And it's helping because nowadays that's how people are getting their positions, their assignments, their dream gigs, through networking, by staging touch points, and by making those subtle, gradual, almost unnoticeable changes from an online conversation to an offline conversation. If they're local, meet them local. Get to a phone call, a discovery conversation, as I like to say. Rick, thank you for the invitation to connect. Glad to accept. If you would be interested in exploring possible synergies and be open to a discovery conversation, I would very much like to schedule one with you at your leisure. Best regards, JD. That's usually my standard acceptance for someone inviting me to connect. I want to be into the conversation quickly. I don't want to let the relationship die on the vine, especially if I've looked at that person and figured that there could be some collaborative potential there. Number 5, in the 5 easy pieces. Oh, the change thing. I've had to adapt. But everything in social now is a study in adaptation. Everything that you've ever done to get to this point, ideally, you've adapted. And now, because of social, because of digital, because of the connection economy that we're in, we have to adapt even more. And those who can, not everybody can, but those who can, who take the initiative, who are changeable, who are coachable, will find themselves in many more potentially rewarding situations. Chuck here said it the best. It's a quote that has stood the test of time, and the quote has never adapted. It has stayed the same. And LinkedIn has gone through, I'd say, the last 18 or 24 months, its period of most radical change. Changes to the functionality, to the aesthetic of the site. It's a vibrant site. It's a rich media site now. It looks good. It is set up to present you in your most favorable manner. Functionality. Everything is being driven now toward your network and interactions. And what the changes have done is it has influenced our use of the site. We are using the site differently than we used to now. We're on it longer. The studies and the stats have shown that more people are paying attention to it. The eyes are coming. But everything that LinkedIn is doing, everything now is designed to get you away from mass messaging. So those of you who are looking to compile a targeted list, very difficult. It truly is. They're trying to keep certain connections in front of you. They're clustering for you. They're prioritizing for you. If someone has a birthday, if someone has a work anniversary, if someone changed one letter in one position in their experience section, you can congratulate them on a new job that they've had since 2002. Everything focused on one-on-one. And when you're truly leveraging connections, I hope you grasp this, it's really important. You are now organically building your network through theirs. This is key. This is where true community management comes in. When you see the overlaps, when you see how your communities are starting to merge and mingle, that's where you start having great meetings and great conversations, like who can you introduce me to? You don't have to know what their needs are in a certain area. Just you want to meet good people. Because the more good people you meet, come at it from a point of direct marketing. You're going to meet X good people. Some of them might not be as good as you first thought, but you're going to be in conversations that lead you eventually to the transaction. And by feeling part of a community and really mingling in the community, you're seeing what goes on. You're observing. Remember, learning, marketing, and connecting, you're doing all three at once. All of this is revenue generating. Building your network, managing your network, leveraging your network, all revenue generating stuff. If you do it longer than 5 or 10 minutes a day. Some of you may not be willing to do that. Well, the road for me has kind of led me here. How on earth do I even get to a stage like this? I don't know. I've been a speaker since the late 1970s. Gives my age away. I know you're thinking, wow, this guy couldn't possibly be more than 35 or 40 years old. He was speaking in the 80s? I did. I went around with my father, who presented sophisticated scientific concepts to the most humorless audience you've ever seen in your life. But there was my dad engaging. I was watching him. Back in the day, we had the old Kodak slide projector. When you advanced the slides, it went ka-thunk. And now we have effortless remotes. Think of where you were about 50 minutes ago. I was very ambitious with the talk. I hope that I've changed the paradigm a little bit. When I'm in a crowd like this, I don't know where the learning curves are. Some need shortening, some need a little nurturing. But my goal is, when you're preparing a talk like the one for today, is to give everybody the sense that they can do it, which is what I hope you did. And I want to shift your paradigm, because the thing that's truly separating you from prolific achievement on a site like LinkedIn, business building achievement, brand building achievement, is you. You got to do the work. It's an input equals output proposition. And I know you've got stuff going on. I know many of you are traveling. When you're 35,000 feet in the air on the way back and you hit the ground running when you get home, make this something that you want to do, not need to do. You don't need to do this for me. Your ability to do LinkedIn will have no effect on my lifestyle, but it will for you, and it can make unbelievable things happen. So ideally, from the start of the talk to where we are today, do we feel that we've gotten a few ideas? Perhaps an aha moment or two. All right. Questions as we exit. Think of the brand you're building. A lot of what you're building lies outside your control. A lot of writing and teaching and speaking going on about personal brand building. We didn't talk much about the company today because LinkedIn, I feel, is an individual platform in many respects. The company platform exists, and obviously you want to energize the corporate brand through the individual profiles. But again, in LinkedIn's period of change, everything is distilling down to how we manage our one-on-one interactions. And your one-on-one interactions are going to be potentially rewarding or deflating based on how you are putting yourself out there. If you brand well, you have gone up the psychic hierarchy in your clients and prospects and your colleagues. You are retainable and referable. If not, work on building the brand. Work on building the network. Take a solid look at who you've brought in since you've been on LinkedIn. Some of you have been on for years. Others may be new to it. And others may be creating an account immediately after this talk. And I would ask what your strategy would be. Are you going to compete on the site, or are you just going to be a billboard with cars driving by? Some may be slowing down to take a little look, but mostly driving by. What is it that is going to differentiate you? Are you going to embrace your uniqueness and embolden yourself to the point where you have a profile that's really set up for the engagements you want, for the proposals you want to write, for the capture? It's the greatest quote in human motivation I've seen. We had some really foul weather here this past winter, and I was able to review the Godfather series. And in G2, Michael is talking to Fredo. They're talking about the Don. By the way, Don Corleone, another study in human influence when you review that film. Great quote. This is the only slide I will read to you because I think it makes an impact. Try to think as people around you think. And on that basis, anything's possible. Thank you. Do I want to stay up here for questions?
Do you want to stay up here for questions?
I have 5 minutes and 47 seconds left.
JD, thank you so much. Was very invigorating and energizing about our LinkedIn profile. I'm very excited about that. I hope today you have a wonderful day. Right now, Rick is getting a microphone, so JD can take a couple of questions, and then we'll move out of here into some networking. I love the idea of a connection economy, so please make sure to connect with the 800 people who are here today.
I guess that's one thing, in a big crowd like this, am I still mic'd? Am I on? Okay. I don't know who wants to have a conversation with me. I'm around for the duration. I'm here all day today and tonight, and here tomorrow. Pull on my suit, but not too hard. And please talk with me if you're interested in learning about how I might be able to work with you or your firm. Types of services I provide, happy to discuss. But again, I have no data collection. I can't. Unless I know you're interested in learning more, I won't know that, so please make it a point to come find me.
What are some guidance on video use on LinkedIn?
Guidance for video use on LinkedIn. Within the past year, after looking at so many websites where more and more people now are using a welcome video on their website, sometimes it's very prominent, other times it's a little bit off on the right rail or on the margin. It's a specific welcome to my website type of video. Well, I thought, okay, I'm going to extrapolate that to the LinkedIn profile. So one of the best uses of a LinkedIn video is a short, no longer than a minute 15 if you have to stretch it, of you in front of the camera just explaining to people why you're on LinkedIn, who you want to connect with. Yes, of course, marketing your products and services, letting people know what you do, maybe sneaking in a pain point or two. Clients typically engage me who feel A, B, and C, but also just being authentic, being genuine, letting people kind of see you. Not everybody is cut out for this kind of work. It's certainly not for everybody. It's not a mainstream practice. But again, it's a very good use of video because people are very preconditioned to seeing the classic virtual commercials on websites nowadays. But the LinkedIn video, whether you're looking right at the camera or filmed in the Elmore Leonard 3/4 interview style where you're talking off camera, very powerful, very powerful. Please review my LinkedIn profile. I have 3 such videos that are a minute or shorter that I feel are good use of video. And obviously, the other good use of video is your stuff. If you have great stuff that has been shot that you're looking to repurpose or maybe re-edit down to a shorter piece, do that. Not appropriate would be the 30-minute interview that you did for the Today Show, maybe, but just good video. Your mission is to not only compel people on your page, but impel. We know the difference. I know I'm dealing with bright, educated people here. Compel means you got their attention. They're riveted. Impel means you're moving them to action. So a good video should have a call to action in there. Big plaster your phone number right there at the end, too, on the opening, on the closing graphic.
Time for one more question.
Okay.
One second. I feel like Phil Donahue. Here you go.
Thanks. I actually have 2 questions. JD, wonderful presentation, so thank you for speaking. My first question is, if you have a blog or regular content, do you have any research on what the best way is to highlight that? I feel like there's so much content on LinkedIn. It's kind of a mess, as you described, in terms of competition for attention. And my second question, if you can fit it in, is can you tell us a little bit about your book? And then did you self-publish or did you go traditional publishing?
Thank you. The check's in the mail. Can I take the first part first? Many of you know that LinkedIn publishing is being systematically rolled out right now as I stand here and speak. How many people are familiar with LinkedIn publishing, which is an extension of the LinkedIn influencer program? About a year to 18 months ago, LinkedIn started an influencer program where the Richard Bransons, the Deepak Chopras, and all of the hand-picked people, Ariana Huffington was one, they were asked to contribute content to LinkedIn under their influencer tag. But now LinkedIn is making this available to everybody. So everybody, at some point, is going to be able to publish content on LinkedIn in the form of a very nice WordPress blog that's dedicated to LinkedIn. So it's all going to be LinkedIn content, but attributable to you as author and with links to it on your profile. People who are getting it now were the ones who requested it early. But if you write a blog, an external blog, or if you're blogging for doing guest blogging, wherever, that's now a content marketing strategy that can hub and route through LinkedIn. So you set up your LinkedIn profile, you're always updating your profile, you always want to keep those good blog posts in front of people, but you're also linking to it in other content. So it becomes this kind of almost a convergent point of attack on getting people to the blog post. But LinkedIn publishing is going to make it much easier when everybody gets it. I don't know when everybody's going to get it. They've got to roll it out to 300 million users. Not everybody is going to create content. It is going to be a free-for-all once it does hit. And the second piece, oh, the book? Well, I've been telling people it'll be available when I'm done with it. And it's no easy thing because I didn't want to write the how-to book. You can Google any problem or issue on LinkedIn and go find the fix. That wasn't my intention. I don't want to just write another here's how you do it type of book. But what really, I think, impresses me about LinkedIn and where it is, which is something that you won't get from LinkedIn Corporate, is that it has changed business behavior in the real world. And I'm interested in how that has happened after being so stagnant for so long. When I first started doing it, it was tough. And I had a vision. I wanted to do it. I made some choices to move forward with it. I'm not a LinkedIn employee. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I'm just a guy that wanted to help people use the site. And I assumed some risk. I became a true entrepreneur. I told my family what I was going to do. They said, okay. And things started to happen, and things started to happen after that, and I wrote a few profiles here and there, and all of a sudden, in 2011, LinkedIn became LinkedIn, and people started to care about their profiles, about the site, about building networks. So I think I'm in a pretty good position, but my focus and my purpose and my mission is still helping as many people as I can in the time I have on planet Earth drive transformational change for themselves and their business.
Well, JD, thank you so much for that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Go out today, connect, learn. Have a wonderful day.